Good evening everyone and welcome to Creative Stream. This is where we're going to take another look at some of the creative stuff that I do and hope that I can gauge your interest on it and get you all ginned up on wanting to do stuff like this as well. Stuff that I love doing, stuff that I find lots of fun, always great fun to do. Hopefully you'll think so as well. I've just said the same thing twice in a different way. Isn't that just a great start to how we mean to go on today? Yeah, so what we're looking at, 3D printing. The jolly wonderful world of 3D printing. Last time we did a creative stream we looked at how to design a 3D model that will print properly on a 3D printer. Looking at how to ensure that the vertical plane is your prime plane for any overhanging aspects. Make sure that you're not making anything hang out into space that it can't print, and trying to understand how filament works and how it interacts with your design, and also the basics of tessellation and how to create a model that will easily and quickly print without taking up too much memory on your computer. So I hope you enjoyed all that. Today we're going to put that into action and actually do a bit of 3D printing. You can probably hear the quite loud whirring in the background. That's the 3 fans that my 3D printer has on it. You'll see that shortly, you'll see it itself, but for now we're just going to take a look at some of the stuff that you can do with the 3D printer and show some problems that you can have with them and things to look out for. Then I'll show you the software that we use, which I think I showed you briefly last month, sorry, and then we'll go from there and have a look through the settings, how to get things to work and how to troubleshoot some of the common problems that you might get. Yay! Right, that was quite an involved conversation, so let's stick the main screen on and see where we're going. So if I make sure I'm going to the right screen, nope, that's not the right screen. Right, so that, as you can probably see there, is the wrong window, because that's the main window of the software. I'm not wanting to show you that quite yet. Bear with it, I'm going to try and scale things properly so you can see. There you go. Well, I'm going to turn that off for now because that's not what we're looking at. Hello, it's me, Selezen. Yeah, so where things are going at the moment. What I've got in front of me here is a few of the bits and pieces that you'll see from the 3D printing. Stuff that I have 3D printed would include this, these. Drew and family, you will remember these. Is there anything else lying around that I can just pop on there quickly? Yeah, that'll do. And that. So I've got a fair few things there. There's one other thing that I can bring over. Now these things range from the practical to the useless, to the primarily decorative. Let's shove that in there, seeing as it's made its way on. So essentially this is a model, a scale actually, model, 1 to 10 scale I believe. Model of those fold down crates that you can get from places like B&Q. You push in the sides and then that bit folds there and it all comes nice and flat. Well, that's a 3D printed scale model of one that I use for storage. Little bits and pieces get stored in it, like screws, for example, and these. So again, just primarily decorative, a little bit of function in there. This is the bigger brother of it, and this was a custom design that was intended to be used for Fantasticon 2 years ago, so that'd be 2016. This area was meant to have the Fantasticon logo on it, but there were some problems with the printer just as I was starting to get this done, and it meant that I couldn't actually do that print. So after a bit of faffing and getting things ready, this actually was printed eventually, but I couldn't get the logo on it because I'd actually removed the logo because I thought it was the logo that was too complex to print. Such wasn't the case. I may tell you about that in a bit. if we open that up, we've got a few things in there as well, so I'm just going to pop them on there and we'll take a look at them shortly. Right, this is probably the biggest thing I've printed in one piece to date. It's a holder that fits around the plug of the Google Chrome thing. You know, the thing that's like Alexa. Oh god, I can't remember. Chrome, Google Home? Google Home, I think it's called. And it's a holder that you basically put around the plug. Plug sits on in there. I'm off the side again. Use your right hand, Dave. And then the Google Chrome, the Google Home sits in that pod there. Just about that size. That's printed for a friend at work. That was printed in one go actually today, so it actually proves that the printer is capable of doing a fairly decent overhang. So if you look at that round there, that's a fairly acute angle. So that printed sort of this way up, like vertically, but sort of that way. So that was the bottom. That was the bit that sat on the print bed, and then it printed up here, and then it did this angle, and actually did it pretty well. There was quite a lot of stringing, which I'll show you in a bit. If I can actually show you the bottom of that, you might see a little bit, if it will focus properly. Tell you what, let's manually focus that, because it is worth showing that at this point. Autofocus off. I want to focus up there. Yeah, there we go. So you see that kind of feathery, webby looking stuff at the bottom there, and that line that's just going across where my thumb is. That's stringing. What that is, it's when your print head rises from the print, moves across, and while it's moving across, it's dragging a little thread of plastic along with it as it moves from point to point. There are ways to deal with that. I'll show you that in a second. But you can also see a bit of splodging, and I don't know what the official name for that. I think it's over extrusion. I think is what causes that. See that little bit of that little plastic nubbin that's sticking up just at the bottom there. Yeah. So. I'm going to manually focus, I think, on stuff because it actually works a lot better. But yeah, there's most 3D prints that you do, if you want to use them for anything practical or for anything kind of precision, you'll need to do some cleanup on them, because they can be quite rough, and obviously the 3D printing process itself is quite a rough process. PLA is not the most accurate or the most friendly thing to print with. It is the easiest thing to print with, but it's not the most friendly in terms of results and smoothness. You need to spend a little bit more money on a slightly better printer than I have, and better quality materials. PLA is great for your beginner and enthusiast, but if you want to actually start doing professional finished quality prints, then you need to get a better printer and better materials. But it's good. It does what you want it to do. These are cookie cutters made for a friend's birthday. He owns a Volkswagen Golf Mark II. This is a cookie cutter in the shape of a Volkswagen Golf Mark II. And here's a very small one that I did as well, just to fit inside. So I was meant to take them down with me to the birthday party, but we ended up having a bit of a shenanigans with that. So what we did was, I sent the file to myself by email, we downloaded it onto a file, onto a memory stick, and then used his own printer without him knowing about it to print this off. And that worked fairly well. Unfortunately, the actual 3D print melted because of the heat of the cookies. So again, PLA, not the best material for anything that you want to be hard wearing and heat resistant, because it melts quite easily. But it does do the job as a cookie cutter. It did melt and disturb, but it didn't end up putting it as a plastic internally. So cleanup is important for something if you're going to use it on food. I wouldn't recommend it on a repeated basis. But yeah, so that's that. So that was that. There's nothing. I can't actually see any sort of things I want to kind of point out on that one, so I'm going to put that to one side. That is the cover I use for my webcam. It's again, PLA being PLA, it's the lid bit of it is now quite loose and doesn't fit in very well. It's supposed to hinge there, but it doesn't do that particularly well. So I need to find some way of actually trying to to move that around. Yellow.
Can Mum have your phone, please?
Special guest star. So yeah, again, PLA will wear, so the constant moving up and down of that hinge has worn the little nubbin in there away, so it doesn't now lock on. If you're going to do something like that, the ideal thing I can suggest is a pin vise to drill that bit out in there, and some little holes in the bit in there, and use a watch strap pin. You know, the bar you get through a watch strap. Use one of them. That'll work. So, but yeah, so that covers my webcam when I'm not using it. That shows something, so I'll keep that handy for evidence later on. And that's really it. We've got these, which is what I've been trying to focus on at the moment, again for Fantasticon. I was meant to do these things a couple of years ago, and as I said, there was problems with the printer that stopped me from doing it. Now, as I've been printing these off, I've been having similar problems, but I will show you those shortly. This is a holder for a Kindle Fire, the Kindle Fire 7-inch. I designed and printed that myself. It was very basic, just to basically get the thing on the wall in some way. So screw holes in there. Made, because I only have a 13 centimetre print bed, which I'll show you just as I've got the thing here. Ta-da! Print bed. Yeah, it don't fit, does it? It just fits, but you can go right to the edge with it, which you're usually not meant to do. I usually like to leave a centimetre each side, but actually that would have fitted. That's annoying. But the thing about this is that because you've got these overhangs again, you've got right angled overhangs, and that's actually the reason why I decided not to do it on there. So a right angled overhang there would just drip, it would just droop, and it wouldn't work properly. So that was actually printed like that. This part was actually sitting inside there, which I was quite pleased with. It sat quite snugly inside there and all printed as one unit, and then I just took it off and cable tied temporarily the thing together to test it. That will get some proper glue-in pins or rivets or something to hold it all together properly at some point. But that's again something that's practical. So 3D printing, practical uses, very good. That actually has a bit more of that stringing I was talking about, so I'm just going to hold that up there and focus in. Right, so let me find the best bit. You see that there? That stuff there, that stuff that looks like cobwebs hanging off. That's stringing. That's very, very fine threads of plastic that have came off, that have been dragged by the printhead as it's been moving back and forward. Now, another common problem that I want to mention is pillowing. Now, pillowing is when your top surface has little gaps in it, and I'm going to show you that close up there. That is pillowing. And that's the top layers of plastic aren't adhering to anything. When you've got an infill, like a patterned infill, which I showed you last time, that will sometimes if your plastic isn't thick enough on the top layers, like you haven't got enough layers on the top, or your print head's moving too fast, or your temperature is too high, then it'll make that pillowing effect. Now I've got a broken model. It didn't print off very well here. I can show you what I mean by infill. Now, I actually tried to find this last time I did this stream, but I couldn't find it. So that is a print that failed halfway through. And that hexagon pattern that you can see in there, apologies for it being black on black, is the infill pattern. So that I believe was 50% infill. So that's what your layers sit on top of. So pillowing can happen in those little holes if your top layers aren't printed well enough. And that's what happens. You've also got a combination of stringing and pillowing on the top of that, if you can actually see that. You see how the stringing has actually created the holes on the top, and you can see multiple layers on there. So that's something to avoid. Avoiding pillowing, as I said, like that. The way to manage it is either increase your infill percentage, which uses more plastic and takes more time. Decrease your temperature on your extruder nozzle. Now usually they say it's anywhere between 200 and 210, 190 to 210 for PLA to print properly. I usually find on my printer that 206 is about right. I was using 207 when these happened, and it's taken a bit of adjustment to get that right. There's also the under extrusion, which means it's not pulling plastic through fast enough. Now I'm actually going to be honest. What I found. Now I'm going to go into a lot. I'm going to look at some of these. These are failed first layers. So those were lying flat on a print bed, and they just tore up like that completely. That can be one of two things. That is either your print bed isn't calibrated and your head is too close to the surface, or it can be plastic not laying down properly on the first layer, or it can be a print bed that's too cold. So again, another one where it's just torn that middle section right back up. Now if you get past the first layer, it can actually look like that. So again, it looks like pillowing, but that's actually the bottom layer. So everything's getting laid on top of that, and that is quite rough because that's been torn off the print bed by the print head running over it. And as you look, the second layer is absolutely fine. Second layer is perfect. What was actually causing that and some of this pillowing effect, it was actually causing this as well. If I just look at this one, you'll recognise that logo, Hello Dan. What was causing that was actually a problem with the printer itself. Now the cable on my printer, the filament, goes from a reel on the back. I wonder if I've got a picture I could show you, just hang on a sec. Images. Open image in new tab. Save image as. And then we'll pull that picture on. Image. There you go. There's my 3D printer. So as you can see from that, the top surface there, the cable, the filament that's coming out from the back, the pin at the back, you can see it on the second picture with the back of it's open. That's where your reel is. It comes up from the reel in through a guide into a little plastic tube, which then feeds it into the print head at the front. The little plastic tube has actually started to drag the plastic, so it's actually grabbing the filament and not allowing it to go through. Hey Garzini, how you doing? Hello. You've said your bit, you can go now. Yeah, so that actually means, what has that actually done is it's prevented the extruder from managing to pull the plastic through fast enough to feed through at the rate it's been set to do. So it's a bit odd. It's not been doing that. I was actually wondering if there's something up with the plastic at the moment. Oh dear, some people. I'm just talking bollocks about 3D printing. How do we do this again? Browser. Okay. No. Oh, I don't know. Yeah. Not up top, it isn't. Just to keep him happy. Vroom. Yay! Hello there. Right, so as I was saying, this, the effect I showed you on the Fantasticoin, was because the filament wasn't being pulled through fast enough, and for some reason this plastic tube was stopping the filament from going through. Now, whether that's down to the plastic itself, because we have had a lot of hot weather in the country, and one of the things about seeing about the weather we've had lately, seeing this all this hot weather we've had, it means that the filament is not happy. Now, one of the first things about 3D printer care is that 3D printer filament, PLA filament in particular, needs to be kept at a certain range of temperatures, and it needs to be kept dry. In Britain, we have very humid weather in the summer, and if we manage to get a heat wave at some point, then usually it means that it's going to be hot and humid, which is the worst conditions for 3D filament. So what I've done is I've actually taken that thing off in order to manage the filament properly, which has created a whole set of other problems that I won't go into right now. And it means that I'm now getting, I mean, if you look at that one, which was the last one that came off before I removed the thing. So again, I'm going to put things out of focus. Look at that one, which is what came off the printer just before I made the fix. And then look at that one with a small adjustment to the depth of the top, which is what came off after. Now again, there's a little bit of string in there that needs to be worked out, but in terms of the actual finish for the surface, that is 10 times better. That is much better. That's almost perfect, in fact. So no pillowing at all. Nice. And again, on the bottom, perfectly smooth. So no lift from the surface at all. And again, let's have the Selezen logo seen as it's me. So again, perfect. A little bit of pillowing, a little bit of over extrusion there, but that's because I've had the extruder running at 1.5 rate, 1.05 rate, to try and fix a few problems I was having with it. So I'll take the focus off again. Right, so yeah, that's where all these are coming from. These are all test prints that basically went varying degrees of wrong, as are these. So these are basically one or two layers that have been laid down and then something's gone wrong. So again, on that one, that's the bottom layer. Let's go back up to there again. So that's the bottom layer for another one of those prints. But again, the next layer up is fine. But I knew that by the time we got to the top layer, that was going to happen again. So there was no point in carrying on. So that's pretty much how that's evolved. So the stringing can be fixed by something called retraction. You can set retraction on your print software, and that means that when the printer head travels, when the extruder travels, it pulls the thread back in. So if you imagine this being the extruder head, let's not make some stupid rude signs, shall we? Yeah, fuck it, let's do it. let's pretend that's the print head. Alright. Need something I can put in it now. That'll do. So that's this is your filament, and this is your print head. So your print head pulls filament through and spooges it out into a thin stream. And what retraction does is that when it's finished printing down a layer, it goes whoop, and then moves, and then goes whoop. So we're just off the screen there, aren't we? Yeah, pulls it in, moves the head, pushes it back down again, and then starts to extrude as normal. That's maybe that way around is better, because you get the impression of what's happening there. So it pulls it back in and then pushes it back out. In order to do that, doing that will actually give you more control over how much plastic comes out as well. So it is worth checking those settings for that as well. And that's it for the common problems that I've really dealt with. I mean, there's a problem that this has just started, that I've actually noticed coming on models after they've been off the printer for a while. And if you look at the bottom edge of this crate, you'll notice that it's got a bit of a curve. It's actually not flat. That printed off flat, but you can have situations where you'll have lifting, which is where the plastic that you're laying down comes off the print bed. This is caused by your print bed being too cold. And what you have to do is set your print bed temperature to something a little higher than what you've got it on. Now usually your range is between 40 and 60 degrees, and I usually have mine on 50 degrees, which makes it which has been set at that forever since I had it, and I've never had any problems. But this is the problem with, again, it's the climate. The climate change, the climate and humidity actually apparently affect PLA in some ways. I don't know. At least some models, especially when I'm trying to do really thin stuff. You can see on that you can see through it. So all the models that I'm trying to do are really thin, which is why I had to change these ones, because they were too thin. But I'll show you the ones that I've got now. I mean, the final prints that I've done, there's one of them actually missing, in silver thread, silver filament, sorry, show you the actual final quality you can get from this kind of printer. So this is the fairly cheap, fairly open market one, so there you go. That one does have a little bit of pillowing on there, but again, that may have been due to the pull from that thing. But that one has come out lovely. Bit of stringing. So 3D printing is never perfect. There's always some degree of cleanup that you'll have to do. No, I didn't have a go at the Marvin keychain actually, not yet. Actually, I might. Well, I'm going to do a bit of a 3D print anyway. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to print something off dead quickly. I was saying that this model, I was concerned before about overhang on the model when we were talking about the last time, and how much overhang you can have on a model and actually manage to get it to print properly. I managed to print that off, and as you can see, that's got that's the bottom of it is the round bit at the bottom there. That's the bottom, and that's how it printed off, and that's got a fairly decent overhang on it there, so not bad at all. I will have a go at the Marvin keychain. I don't think I'm going to do it this evening, but I will grab it. Did I download it? I can't remember if I downloaded it or not. Right. So I'll move all this stuff to one side for now. Cancel that. No. What are you doing? Hello everybody. The wide angle shot that reveals all the problems I have. Glad I cleaned. Okay, let's zoom that back in again to where it was. Configure plus. That'll do. Right. Hello. Did I download that Marvin keychain? That's a question actually. Actually can't remember. Download T drive. I'll download it and we'll take a look at it once we go into matter control. So just bear with me a second, I'll download that file. 3D models, Thingiverse. I did download it. Extract to there. Okay, right. What I'll do now, we'll stop looking at my desk. Oh no, we won't. What we'll do first of all is we'll have a look at prep. So the 3D printer itself, whoa, dear me, that's not looking great. There we go. There's my 3D printer. Ain't it handsome? Ain't it lovely? Isn't he lovely? I might want to throw something over the stuff in the background to give better contrast, but I don't have anything handy that I can do that with. I'm not going to risk it. Wait a minute. I do have a flag there. Hello everybody. So what I'll do is I'll just lob this flag over some of this stuff in the background and just hope that it hangs in place. That's better. That's a bit clearer. Oh. Apologies for the gratuitous body shots there. Right, so that's the 3D printer. I'll use my handy pointing stick. This camera really does pixelate a hell of a lot. Right, that is the print bed. Come on camera. Print bed. Pixely hands. Extruder. Light on extruder. Which is completely pointless. Most pointless light you'll ever see in your life is that light. Now the print bed here, which won't move because I've locked it in place. Can I move the print head? Yes I can. We have the power. There's your print head. Okay, so that's the 13 by 13 area. There's a clip here to hold your main print thing in place. And that's essentially it. There's not a lot to look at on a 3D printer, really, is there? Once it's not actually going. But if I make that a bit small, and we'll have a look back at the print thing again. This is the print bed itself, the actual print plate. Now it's a ceramic thing, I think, or it's metal of some description. I'm not entirely sure. Right, but this one, as you can see from the plate, has little holes in it. And if you print something straight onto that, then the plastic will fall through those little holes, and you'll have a kind of dimpled textured effect on it, which isn't great. So one of the little tips that I have for you is blue masking tape. Blue masking tape. getting things off the print bed can be a bit of a nightmare, because the adhesion for this stuff, obviously you're melting plastic onto a flat surface, and it's quite sticky, and it sticks like you would not believe to this stuff. So that is a really sticky surface, and it's not particularly great. It's basically masking tape, yeah, painter's tape. It's masking tape, but for some reason the blue stuff has properties that the beige stuff that we normally use doesn't have, so it works a little better. I think the adhesion for it is better. It's a slightly different texture as well. But yeah, so you print your stuff onto that, have your print plate set about 50 degrees, and then you should be able to print pretty much anything onto it. So at the minute, as you can see, you're only supposed to use it once and then replace it, but I use it a couple of times before, unless it gets damaged, then I'll replace it. But as you can see, I've got a couple of rips there because it's been quite sticky. So in order to carry on, what I'm going to do is replace the tape, and I'm going to replace that bit as well. Now essentially what I'm going to show you is sticking tape onto stuff. Not a particularly advanced thing, but there is a bit of a technique and a couple of hints. Now I'm just going to leave those two bits there. There's a little bit of damage there, but it's not too major, so I'm just going to leave that in place. So you get some tape, enough to cover the plate. Now you have to line it up exactly, so you shouldn't have any little lines where you can see through. Difficult to do. At least that was the advice I was given by a chap called Barnacles. His name's spelt Barnacules, but it's Barnacles because it's meant to be based on Hercules. But to be honest, that little gap there, that little join, really doesn't matter because it's not really high enough resolution to make a difference there. So just cut that level. Okay, so that's one bit replaced, nice and smooth and fresh and new. Then we'll do the second one. Again, line up as best you can, so you don't get too OCD about it. He says getting overly OCD about it. Okay. And there you go. Trim that off. There you go. One nice fresh print plate ready to print. So again, we'll take that over to the printer. The screen for which I'll make a little bigger for the moment because we're going to be primarily working on that soon. Slide it in place, flip it on, and then home the Y axis and let it drift back into place. Right, so that's us ready to print. Now, one thing I should say is your printer, your filaments insertion into the print head should be done in a particular way. Now, to explain that, I'll just show you. Let me just grab some printer filament from over here. Filament. Yeah, I knew that was going to happen. Here's your filament right there, right? I'll give you your filament. Configure video, autofocus off, go up there. So that's your filament, right? That's the filament's edge. Now that edge isn't great, isn't it? It's got a kink in it and it's a bit raggedy at the end there. So that's where it's been pulled out of the extruder basically. So that needs to be tidied up. So what you need to do is grab some clippers, wire cutters, whatever tools you might have handy, and just go above the bit where you've got your problems, which in this case is there, and just cut it at an angle. Don't cut it straight like that. Oops, let's come back on camera. Don't cut it straight like that, because that will give you a flat end to put into the extruder. If you do that at an angle like so, then you have a nice tidy point that will go into the extruder nice and easily. Which I shall now do. Now you have to be careful when you're wrapping stuff back on like this, because if you don't, one, you might lose the end of your filament, which I've done a few times, and two, you may get it tangled. So I'm going to pop that in the top. I'm just going to pop it in the hole there. So if I pull that back round, you can let you see that there. So here's the end. Here's the top of the extruder. You see that little hole next to the coloured cable? Well, I'm going to push that into there. Put that back where it needs to go. I'm going to flip to Team Viewer. Hopefully it will come on. There we go. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use these controls here. You'll see them flash on the screen. You can't see the mouse pointer sadly. And use that to extrude the plastic into the extruder. Now it's grabbed it, so I can let it go. And then keep extruding it. You should see a little bit of spooge coming out of the end there. I shall make this nice and big for you so that you can see. So if you look just at the edge of the white flag bit where you can just about see the extruder, so if I can get that camera any closer in. Yeah, that'll do. That'll do nicely. Okay. Yeah, nice. Alright, that'll do. Okay. So you can see that a bit clearly. So you've got the extruder at the bottom there. You can see a little bit, you've got the brown extruder, and then you can see the a little bit of grey hanging off the bottom. That's the what I call the spooge, which is unusable filament, which is just dribbling off the bottom. So if I extrude that again, that'll probably dribble down into a little bit of filament that will hang down eventually. There it comes. There you go. That's me priming the extruder. So all these technical terms that you can use for this wonderful hobby. That is very funny. One of the most useful things you can ever have is a cocktail stick. Yeah. So what I use that for is wiping away this spooge, because you don't want to touch this stuff with your fingers because it's really hot. that extruder is sitting at 206 degrees centigrade and will burn your finger off instantly. So let's just pull a bit of that off. So that's got rid of the spooge. So a little tiny bit will come off. That's now ready to use. So what I'll now do, now you've seen the close-up bit, is I'll put it back over here so you can see the top angle. Now the top angle is so you can actually see what's printing once I actually start doing something. So there your that's your printer setup there. So if I move that back down. Right, so now something to print. So what I'm going to load in, this is our lovely Matter Hacker software, so it's Matter Control it's called. It's by a company called Matter Hackers, and it is a freeware software, open source, that you can essentially use to do 3D printing if you don't want to use the default software that comes with your actual printer. This, as I said I think a few weeks ago, the software that came with the Vector 3D was okay, but not brilliant. This software is much better, it's got more features. So if I look at the settings, for example, the printer settings for print leveling, the main thing about it that makes it worthwhile is the print leveling. So you can actually go to the options, you can actually calibrate the leveling within the software as well. So rather than having to twist all the screws on the bottom of that print plate that I showed you, that you can see on the screen, you can get it as close as you need to get it. And then use this software to fine tune it so you can get perfect prints. Now I'm probably going to have to recalibrate this at some point because I have used it for a while now, and they say you should recalibrate every 3 weeks just to check it. But I'm not going to do that this evening because it'll be you won't see half of it and it won't make any sense, and it's difficult to manage across 2 different screens. So I'm not going to bother at the moment. So your general settings then, starting from the top, you've got your layer heights. Now those are used to control how many layers of plastic go into your top layer and your inner layers, and how thick all those perimeters and bits are. So if you're wanting to create something that's got quite a decent thick wall on it before you start doing your infill, then you would change your perimeters for the outer surface, which is these settings here that I'm just going to highlight for you. Okay, so 1mm perimeters, which is about 4 print rounds. Because it's 0.2mm, no, it's 0.3 approximately millimeters that your actual print will give you. Okay, so I'm not going to go into most of these, but they are useful for various different things. Your layer height, your standard is 0.2mm. If you want to do fine, you can do 0.1mm. That'll use twice as much plastic and will take twice as long to do. But it will give you a much finer print, because the print head will move vertically 0.1mm rather than 0.2mm. So good for doing fine detailed work. I was going to show you something, but I seem to have dropped it somewhere and I can't find it. And it's something very similar to the coins that I just showed you, but with a little spaceship on top, which I'm going to show you as a sample. And it came out rather well, but it could have done with being at 0.1mm to give it a better resolution on slopey surfaces. Oh dear, sorry, a bit of a yawn, Carly. Okay, so that's your layer height. Your first layer height can be as thick as you like. So a 0.4mm, if you're doing 0.2, I'm just going to change that back to 0.2. No. Wait a minute, I'm in the wrong window. There we go. So 0.2. First layer height. Now what will happen there is it will give you a double layer, so it will print twice around the same thing. See you later, Garcini. I hope you enjoy the YouTube when you see it. So it'll print 2 rounds on that layer to give you your first layer. which will make it more durable, and it makes it stick to the plate better, as the tooltip says. Your outer surface perimeters, your perimeters are 1mm. So your external, as I already said, your external wall will be 1mm thick before it starts to get into your infills and general filling patterns. You'll see what I mean by that when it actually starts doing a print shortly. Avoid custom perimeters means that you don't allow any of the perimeter lines crossed over each other. So again, that just helps with stringing. External perimeters first means that it does the outmost wall first before it does any other perimeter. So if you've got a shape that has a hole in the middle, for example, most of the time when you do a print, it'll do the internal circles or squares or whatever perimeter around that hole there is, and then it'll do the outside one. You can reverse the order by doing it like that. Start end overlap is where the print starts and ends, or where the actual layers start and end. You can have them overlap slightly. It doesn't really make a lot of difference to stuff. I've never really used it. Merge overlapping lines, I've never used. Expand thin walls, I've never used. Well, expand thin walls, the concept behind that is that if you have a print where the actual model walls are really thin, so less than your resolution for your printer, then it'll expand them to be the right width. And your outer surface, top and bottom, is the solid layers. So rather than doing infills up to a certain point, the top and bottom of your model you can set what width they will actually be before it starts doing your infill patterns. Okay, I'm not going to go through all of these options. Fill density is what I showed you with the back knifing, the black hexagons. The density is how much of the space inside is filled up by plastic. So if you want to make it quite empty, then if I set that to 50 or even 30, that's what I usually put it to, then it will use 30% of the inside area of your model will be plastic, and 70% of it will be open air. I've got 70 at the moment. Triangles, grid, hexagon lines and all that is just the method by which it does the infill. Starting angle is what angle it will start to print in comparison to the print plate's y-axis. So I'll just show you it. No, it won't. What it'll do is, your model, if you imagine that you've got a box and you're trying to print a box off. Let me just hide that for a sec. Right, so let's have a look at our lid here. Let's have a look at that. So we've got our lid there, right? That's your box. So this is the top of your print, this is the bottom of your print. What the angle means, the starting angle, is that if you have a 0 in there, which we currently have, then it'll do that. So it'll be horizontal to the top and bottom. If you do 90 degrees, then it'll be perpendicular. So it'll be up and down. So your lines will travel that way. If you say 45 degrees, then your print head will go like this. It'll go diagonally across the model as it's building up your layer lines. Okay, so that's what it means. Boop. Infill overlap just means how much the infill overlaps on the perimeters and whether to fill thin gaps. So any small holes in the model potentially, it'll fill them. Speed is essentially how fast your print head moves between different things. 60 millimeters a second is about right. You can take that down if you want. I've been using it at 50 for a while, but for the moment I've upped it to 60 to try and get rid of some of the pillowing effects, and it seems to work, so I'm leaving it at 60 for now. And the rest of it is percentage speeds based on that original speed. So your top infill, your top solid, so the top layers will print at a quarter of the speed as your normal model would do. Raft is a raft that sits on, that your model can sit on. If it's a thin model and a tall model, to stop it from falling over, you can print a raft, which is essentially just a couple of layers of plastic that it can sit on and adhere to slightly better than it would do otherwise. And these are just speed for your outside perimeters, your inside perimeters, so bits around holes and your actual outside of the model, and basically other speeds there. Rafts and priming. rafts, as I just described. Priming is priming the flow of your plastic. So, I'm saying so a lot, talking a lot here. It'll basically create some outer loops around your model. You'll see it when I load the model in, that will allow you some time for the print head to start flowing properly. Sometimes it doesn't immediately start producing plastic out of it as it feeds the filament through, and it might need a few centimeters for it to actually start spitting the plastic out properly. This just gives it the chance to do that without making a crappy edge around one of your models, and that's how far away from the model it actually is. So that's all the settings for that. Support material. Now this is one area I am not going to go into at this point because I have not been able to get this right. This is what you can use to support overhangs. So I was showing you before about the overhangs on models where you have to have a certain maximum limit. So 45 degree roughly is the maximum limit you can have for overhang, where you're going from a vertical surface to a horizontal surface. If you have a 90 degree angle, for example, on your model, like I showed you in the Kindle holder, you can use support material to try and hold that up as you print. And essentially it just uses plastic, separates it slightly, and has a slightly thinner output to just try and hold that stuff up, but still be easy to break off. I have not managed to get it to work like that. I can get it to support the model, but I cannot get it to break off properly. It's always been a completely wasted model once it's finished. But it does work. I've seen people make it work properly. I just haven't got the settings right for it yet. Output options, just how it puts things onto the base, basically. None of those are relevant for our print today because I don't have multiple extruders and I'm only ever doing single prints. Filament settings, again, material, that just allows you have to set this, so you have to make sure you set this to the exact material that you've actually got. I have PLA 1.24 grams per centimeter square, so that's how dense the actual plastic is, and the diameter of the thread itself. You can put a rough cost in there, and what it'll do is it'll try and work out what the cost of your model is in dollars, which is quite a nice little feature. And as before mentioned, the temperatures of how everything's meant to work. So bed temperature 50 degrees, extruder 206. Retraction is what I mentioned earlier. So when your head moves from one part of the model to another without extruding plastic, it can retract the plastic inside the extruder head to stop stringing happening, or at least that's the theory anyway. I have now enabled this so that it's going to try and do that for me, to try and get rid of all the stringing problems I've been having with every model I've had. And extrusion is just how well it extrudes the plastic. So your extrusion multiplier is 1, which is the default setting for whatever it does. And it's how fast it pulls the plastic through the extruder, basically. It's all calibrated to use a setting of 1, but now and again, depending on the plastic and depending on how old the plastic is, depending if it's degraded slightly, then it might be necessary to pull it through a little bit faster, hence the 1.05, just to give it a bit more chance to lay properly. It prevents pillowing, but it can create little lumps and bumps, as I showed you on the model earlier. And cooling is how much your fans are going. Now I have 3 fans on this thing, only one of which is actually attached to the printhead itself, but I do have an add-on pack that I got with the printer that I need to install still, which has a fan that points down at the model itself, which cools the plastic quicker, which improves adhesion and it can fix some of your stringing problems as well. So yeah, that's all the filament settings, and the print settings before. Yellow. Sorry about that, another visitor bringing me drinks, which is always a good thing. Yay! Okay, so that's it for the settings. I'm not going to go into any more of that stuff. The controls are quite useful. All these do is they control the movement of the head. So you can reset everything to home, or you can move the actual print plates around. So if I do that, if you look at the the image of the printer on the screen there in front of you, I can move the print bed around. I can also move the print head up, or move it across actually, sorry. And I can move the print bed up and down. In theory, doesn't seem to move, but never mind. Or I can home everything. Like so. So yeah, that's that. These bits up here, the extruder and print bed temperatures, I've got them on, so I've been heating I've been preheating the extruder head and the print bed to keep them at top heat, so that once we're actually ready to start printing, we don't have any issues with trying to get it to heat up, because it will wait until they reach heat before it does any movement. Just gonna have a drink. But that's it. So that's all pretty self-explanatory. You can adjust your fans as well. On or off from this one. And that's it. So what we're going to print. Let's print something. It's got a thingy burst. Let's have a look at that keychain. So there's the Marvin thing that Mr. Garzini's been talking about. So that is something we can print off probably pretty quickly. But I want to do something just really quick and see if it prints off before the end of the stream. So that'll probably take a bit longer. So let's go back to where I was before. So go to My Models and go to Ship Coins and the Viper. Now basically what I've done is I've created the Viper from the old classic Elite, not the newfangled Elite Dangerous stuff, but the old fashioned nice simple model. So basically it's a triangle on a circle. Think of it as a gaming piece if you like, or something like that, but essentially it's a coin, a token. Alright, so this will show you a rendering of what your model will look like once it's on the print bed. So you can scale it. If I go to the edit screen, I can rotate, I can scale, I can mirror, make it bigger or smaller, whatever I want to do with it basically, which is quite cool. But I'm not going to do any of that because I'm going to just print it as is. So I need to go to the layer view and then generate. Now what this generate button will do is it'll use all the settings you've set up in here, and it'll use them to generate a preview and a preview for the user and a sliced model for the printer. So it will generate the G code which is used by the printer to do the 3D print. Layer by layer it'll break the model up, ready to actually print off. Okay, so there's the preview of layer 1. So we have layers there, we have layers 1 to 22. There's your information about how much it's all going to be at the side there on the right. So it's going to take 14 minutes to print. It's going to use nearly a metre of filament. It's going to be approximately 2 grams when it's finished, and it's going to cost me 8 cents, so about 5 pence. So bargain in anyone's book. Alright, but the other nice thing about this software is that you can actually view layer by layer how it will build up, and you can see around the edge there, that big circle, the biggest circle on the screen there is the priming ring that I told you about before, where it's going to use that to prime the nozzle. So if we build up the model here, we can see, as you can see, the lines in the layer will alternate direction by 90 degrees, sorry. And as you can see, they're in line with this is the front of the print plate, lined up. And as you can see, those lines are actually going along parallel with that line. And then as we go to the next layer, 90 degree off, so they're vertical. Okay. As we go up, you'll see everything take shape. Now you can see in there, that's the infill, because that's the bit where the model's going to be. So there's enough space in there to justify having the infill. And then obviously we build up the top layers, and then we build the full model, as you can see. Okay. Now because the printer is 0.2mm, obviously that is going to leave. It's going to be like a stepped Viper rather than a very smooth Viper. But this is what these printers do. This is what they're like. It's not a high resolution printer. I would say it's entry level home printer that you can use to do what you want to do. So in order to get things going, we click on print, which will kick her into life. The beeping you hear is our prime and our axes. Getting everything ready. And then it'll start everything going. Because it's been sitting for a while, I'm going to give the filament a little bit of a hand to actually get flowing. So what I'll do is I'll push it down from the top here, just into the nozzle to make sure that it goes down. I don't need to, it's coming out. Gonna add some improved light there. You can see that laying down. I'll move it in. What I'll do is I'll lift the camera up a little. Sadly, I can't move it any further in. As close as I can get. I'm definitely of the opinion that I need to recalibrate. Primarily because I think the actual print head's dragging along the top of the first layer. As you see, that has now went into high gear, so that's now on layer 2. So it's going faster. That was one of those settings we looked at before. I just realised you couldn't see a thing I was showing you on that window, could you? In the layer views. Damn it. Let me try something. Sorry, I'll show you that again. Open a second copy of Matter Hackers. Right, so as I was trying to show you, this is the model as it's loaded in. Hang on, let me just move that out of the way to up there for now. this is the model that I've loaded in. As you can see, it's the old style Viper from the old Elite, or a triangle on a coin, basically. I can go into edit mode and change it. I can select it and move it around on the print bed if I want to. I can use those tools there to rotate, scale, mirror and display. So if I rotate it just to show you what it does, that's not a particularly useful rotation because it won't print. But that one is, because it can change the direction that it's going to print it in. So it doesn't really matter what you do on there. But scale will change the size of it. I'm not going to do that because, well, actually, fuck it, may as well. Let's change that to 2. Apply scale. Let's make it big. You can lock the ratio, or you can make it bigger on one side and less on the other. So you can make it taller, but still the same diameter. You can make it shorter. You can make it fill the whole plate without making it any taller. Yada yada yada. So loads of different things. Or you can mirror it. You can display all the different things. So that's showing your entire print area. So that's the height I can print to as well. I don't usually show because I don't usually do quite a lot of tall models. And different options for just how it renders the image on the screen for you. So that's the 3D model as it actually looks, with all the vertices and splines. And that's how I usually look at it, just the outlines. Okay, so what we can do with that, I'm not going to edit that because I don't need to, so I'm going to cancel all that. Do not save the changes. So there's our model. You then go to the layer view, and because I've already generated this, can I cancel that? No. What you normally has a generate button there. The generate button uses all the settings that you've got, that you've set up before here, to generate this. Now what that has done is it's spliced the model in that it's, as I said, it's taken it down to its layers and showing you how to render that, showing you how it's going to print that. So each line and each layer of plastic is shown on screen for you like so. And there's your infill pattern, which, as I showed you before, infill, set to triangles to fill in 70%. And then I'll get to the top, finish the coin off, and then build the rest of the model like so. I chose a nice simple one because it prints off fairly quickly, and as you can see it's only going to take 14 minutes to print, so that's not going to take too long to do, so hopefully we should be able to see that before we get anywhere near the end of this video. So yeah, that was pretty much all I was trying to show you. Again, you'll notice that, as I was trying to say to you, the infill starting angle is 0, which means that those lines that you can see on the screen in the model on the coin's top are in line and parallel with the bottom of the print plate, which is the bottom row numbers at the bottom of the screen there. Okay, so that was that. And as you can see, this shows you each layer as it prints. So what I'll do is I shall bring down, oh, hang on, I'll back up to full scale again. It shows you each line as it prints, which is quite cool. And the image, the print itself, I've made that full screen just so you can have a look, is going fairly well. Looking good. And that's really it for now. There's not a lot I can really go into while it's printing. I've gone into all the kind of options for it. I think again it's all the different things to look out for in terms of what can go wrong with a 3D print. It's one of those hobbies where it's never a consistent thing. There's never a point where you can sit there and say, I now have fixed all of the problems I can ever have with this print. You'll always have situational, environmental problems that could give you some failed prints or some problems with your print or more cleanup work to do. But you can usually fix most of the stuff either by changing settings, recalibrating the printer, or doing a little bit of finishing up work. So as I said, there's pillowing, which is where you have little holes in the top of your print. There's threading, where you have little bits of little threads and wisps of plastic that are going from point to point on your model. There's over extrusion. There's under extrusion, where your plastic is not meeting at edges, so you'll have holes between each layer, holes between each line that prints, which means that it's not flowing the plastic through quick enough. Over extrusion just means that it's minging, obviously. If your print doesn't stick to the bed, which is what I mentioned before with a little bit of curling that comes off it, it can mean a couple of things as well. It can mean that the print platform is not level, which is what I was saying about having to calibrate now and again. Recalibrating occasionally is a good thing to do, as I've said, because it can make sure that your printer is as accurate as possible. It can also mean that, one of the other common problems is that the nozzle's not close enough to the bed. I think my nozzle's too close to the bed. I need to recalibrate because I think there's been a movement in one of the parts, which has actually put the extruder right close to the bottom of the actual plate itself. So you need to raise that. Likewise, you can have it where the nozzle's too far away, and it's basically dropping plastic onto the thing, which will just look horrible. Also, if you're having issues with it not sticking, it's maybe worth slowing down the printer, like slowing down the first layer speed. I've done that twice, so I generally don't have that problem. But yeah, it's always worth checking that one if you're finding you're getting the stuff I was showing you before, those really thin coins that were lifting off. See, that could be caused by the fact that it's printing too fast, which is why I've slowed it down. And again, temperatures and so on. The holes and gaps that I showed you on that blue box at the very start of the video, as I said, that's a similar thing to pillowing. I think it's based on another name for pillowing, really, to be honest. Again, it's essentially have more top layers. So the settings I have started off at 1mm on the top layer, and I increased that to 2, and it did seem to sort some of the problems out. So it's always worth doing that. Increase your infill percentage, as I said, will help stop that happening because there's less space to pillow over. And then, as I said, under extrusion is one of the things that you need to look at on that as well. So increase your extruder exponent by 0.05 increments until it works. I wouldn't say go any higher than 1.2 on that. So, what else can happen? I'm trying to think of stuff that's I've read about before but never actually happened. One thing that did happen actually was I had a layer separation. Apparently that is a common problem. It can mean that the actual print head's moving too fast, and the print bed itself can't keep up, so it doesn't actually meet properly So at some point it'll stop and it'll fall back, and it'll shift a couple of millimeters to one side or something like that. Or it can be mechanical issues. Now mine happened when it happened to me, which is why, as I was mentioning before, I had those Fantasticon coins. That was why it's taken me this long to actually make them, because what had happened was I had the wrong version of a circuit board, believe it or not. That's what it was tracked down to. The wrong version of a circuit board had meant that it wasn't stepping properly, so when it was trying to step the x-axis, it failed. And that was what was causing the layers to separate out. So it was interesting. And again, other things, a lot of the rest of the stuff that goes on is just, I mean, blobs and zits is one of the things that have come up on a search before, and that's what I was saying before about when it could be over extrusion. You've got little blobs that sit on the side, or little blobs that come out inside, on the outside of the model, and it can all be down to retraction settings. Oh, we're finished. So, as I mean, that was quite quick. So I shall go into the controls and I shall home all the axes. Spooge hanging off. We'll hide the 3D cam and team viewer for the moment. Move that out of the way. Move that out of the way. Grab our print. There we go. One coin. Right, so let's open up DaveCam 1 settings. Configure. Boy. So there you go. Now that blob in the top there, that's the print head. And I have not been able to find a way to stop that from happening. It's the one bugbear I've got with this printer that keeps happening. It's where the print head stops when the print stops. It actually melts a little bit of that plastic on top. And as I said, I have not yet found a way to stop that from happening. But there you go. So a very small print. Come out rather well. Focus. Bloody webcams. So say there's your little Viper model on there, looking good. You see that primary ring served its purpose. So I'll show you the side of it. There's a little bit there where it didn't actually extrude any plastic. Now if I didn't have that priming ring, that would have been the bottom surface of the model. Now I've got to try and get the damping off. So as I said, even though the plastic is hold on, let's refire up the extruders. Oh, thank you for the follow, whoever that was, or the whatever. They don't have a message about it. Yeah, trying to get that off can be a pain. Trying to get your nail under it can be a pain. So generally what I have to do is use a pig-in knife. But the beauty of having the tape on there is that you can just peel the tape off if you want, but I want to try and use this tape again. So I'm going to try and get this off without losing the tape. Well, it came off, not pretty. If I can push that back down again without creasing too much, then I can get another print off that. Frugality from a Scotsman, how ridiculous. So again, I've got to try and get this perimeter ring off now, which, because it hasn't printed off properly, is quite thin, so will break as it just has. But we're getting there. Come on, off you come, you bastard. You utter bastard. Bastardo. So you can see there, quite a fiddly hobby sometimes. That'll do. So that's that. It's more or less clean. A couple little holes, but that's nothing major to worry about. Back on the print bed. Pick up the phone I just dropped. And we're good to go. Right, so as I say, there's the coin. Lovely smooth bottom on it. Nice top. It's actually done quite well in the rendering stakes, apart from that spoogy bit at the top, which I'm a bit annoyed about. I'm sorry the person who just folded, I don't seem to have a record of who you are. I apologise about that. I thought of a way I can find out. I don't know what it was. Good lord. Detricked! Hello there! Sorry if I missed you popping on there, I do apologise. It was Detricked hosting me, that was what it was, wasn't it? Yeah, so thank you for the hosts, Detricked. Detrick, whatever. Okay, so what else can we do? Right, I was going to have a look at that Marvin model for Garzini. So we'll pop that on, we'll have a look at how it's going to chop up, and then I think we'll call it a night for this evening. I'll leave that printing, and then we'll head off. So I need to go to the other machine, open up the TeamViewer window again. I will open up that Marvin model. So let's go back to 3D models, Thingiverse, keychainless hub, Marvin. So there we are, let's do one of them. Now that's got, as I said before, that's got quite a lot of overhangs. So there's actually a 90-degree roughly angle there that's going to hang over. So that's going to be a challenge. We've got an overhang there, which will have support on both sides, so should be okay. And that's going to be interesting to see how that renders, especially at the resolution this printer has. Let's give it a go. Let's chop it up and see what happens. What design? Are you talking about the little coin, or are you talking about the Marvin thing we're looking at now? Oh, dear me. So let's chop it up. Go to layer view and generate. It's going to take 40 minutes to print. So if we look up at that, this is where it gets odd. Now this is where we're going to have to worry, because it's somehow got to manage to print that essentially in mid-air. Ah, Marvin. Yeah, this one that Garzini told me about a while ago. I said I'd have a go at printing it, and now that I'm doing the printing session, I'm going to do it. So let's see how it manages to do that. We'll get to that, but that's layer 13. So we'll see how it manages that, and it'll be interesting to see how it does it. And then we've got the bit where we get to the side of the head. And there's the start. So there's what it's going to do. It's going to go round, and then you can't see the mouse, unfortunately. Can I set that so you can see the mouse? Show remote cursor. Will that work now? Yay! Got a mouse! Right, so it's going to come round and go bloop, 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 bloop. Bloop, 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 bloop. And then it's going to go in and do the same thing. So if it does that first, and then does that, or does that first then that, then it should be okay. If it does that one first, it may have a bit of a sag. But even if it does sag, it'll provide enough of a base for the next layer. Is that one, which sits overlapping it on top. So, you know what, I think that should be okay. So, shall we find out? I mean, that's layer 41. That's going to take 40 minutes to print. It's currently 22, so it's got 20 minutes. So, halfway would be 50 odd. So yeah, it'll do it. Let's see. Let's give it a go. Let's see what happens. Live a little. So again, I'm going to give the filament a bit of a helping hand, just for that first couple of rings. Hello everybody. closer look at that. As you can see, it's printing that quite well. The thing is, with it being quite a small model with a very small footprint, literally in this case footprint, it's doing it really quickly. So the plastic's only really it's not melting. Sorry, it's not solidifying properly before it goes over the next layer. So any imperfections that are put on, the extruder nozzle will actually flatten them out as it puts the next layer of plastic down. So that seems to be how it works best. Sometimes with the bigger models, or the bigger footprint models at least, you find that by the time it reaches back round to the starting point, it's already dried on that level. We've done our first layer of vertical. So have a look, see how it's held up. It's actually held. It's held perfectly. I have a good feeling about this. As you can see, now that it's started to build up, they're actually overlapping each other, more or less. Actually, they're not that well. Let's take another quick look, just out of curiosity. It's not bad. It's looking good, actually. There's a little bit of string in there, but not as much as I thought, so it's pretty damn good. Move that across as far as I can. In the meantime, hello again. what I'm going to try and do is fix this cut. So that blob on the top there, as I said before, was caused by the extruder getting or staying too close to the top of the model. When it had finished. So I hope somewhere there's a setting that I can use to make it stop doing that. So as it stops, it beeps. And then it starts to move everything around. What I want it to do is actually drop the print plate. There. Okay. That's fixed it a little bit at least. Not as bad as it was, at least it's flush. But still, I want to find a way of stopping that from happening. So I don't remember it doing that when I was using the original software, so there must be some difference between them at some point, at least in that aspect. Yeah, I do. I have loads of other colours. I had black. I tend to use one colour till it runs out. But I've got the white grey. I've got black. I've got some wood effect. I've got white, red, blue. Let me put Dave Cam back on again and bring it up. Just let you see stuff I've done in different colours. I've got that. Got that again, which is again blue. Got that, which is black. And the latest colour I've bought this week is silver. So yeah, I've also got red, wood effect, white, I've got yellow somewhere I think, I've got translucent, I've also got a glow in the dark one, I've got green, and I may have pink. I'm not entirely sure. We've done the hangs. Oh, they've not gone well. So there's the outhangs I've gone on. As you can see, not looking great. They haven't overhanged at all. Let's just see how it goes. That camera is crap. I've got to get another camera. Another decent webcam rather than this kind of shitty one. It's one of those sport cam things. Like a GoPro, but a really cheap GoPro, so it's obviously showing its cheapness in the way that it's doing that pixelization every time you leave it alone for 5 minutes. Actually, no, I think it has done that overhang, it's just that it's so small. It has, you know. Oops. It has actually done it. There's literally like a half a millimetre, I think, that first layer, and it's just dropped down, but the rest of it's come out okay. So yep, just for Garzini, there is the Marvin model printing off. It's looking like it's going to come out okay. I think there's a bit of string non-adhesion at the front there. I can't really see it very well on the camera, but when it comes into focus and sort of pixelating, you can see it just a little bit. It's not meant to overhang, but it is overhanging slightly. So I'm just hoping that's gonna. It's obviously coming out a little bit there, so a little bit of stringing, but we'll keep an eye on it. And then we'll have a look at it once it's finished. I'll keep the stream going until it's finished because it's doing great guns. It's doing well. Don't. We're halfway through. 20 minutes in. Just over 15 minutes in. So what I've just been doing, you can hear the scraping noise as I'm talking there, is the coin printing up earlier had a little bit of spreading on the very first layer, which means it's a little wider than it should have been, and sort of sticks out like a raised ridge on the bottom edge of the print. Now that is what's called elephant's footing, and it generally means that the print bed may be too hot. It's making that first layer spread out. Or, as I said before, it could mean that the print head is too close to the print bed when it's doing the first layer. So the actual extruder nozzle itself is pushing the plastic out of the way as it's laying the layer down. So definitely going to have to recalibrate, and I'm going to have a look. I'll recalibrate first, and then if that doesn't work, I'll take a look at moving the thing. So what colour would you like to trick? I would show you, but they're all in a box at the back of the room, and I need to climb up across 4 different things to get to it. So, sorry, I'm not doing that right now. But the reels of colour I've bought are the grey one and the black one. The other ones, the red, blue, glow in the dark, all that stuff, all came with the printer. Or at least with the magazine collection I was doing the printer with, came with some sample colours as a few on a few of the issues. I apologise about the resolution of that camera looking at the printer. It is really bad. It's not a great webcam. It's not bad as a GoPro type thing, but it's not great as a webcam. Blue. The blue is a nice colour, and the stuff I've done before in the blue is cut really nice. But I've run out. Yeah, it's not looking bad at all. From what I can see of the pixelization, looking at the actual thing itself, it's not looking bad. It's going around the eyes now. So listen how it goes, it does the top of those eyes. almost done the eyes. Let's take a look. Eyes there. Well, it's a bit Clint Eastwood compared to the picture, but not bad. You can see a little bit of droop on the bottom of that. There's one loose string as well on just below his eyes. I'll tell you that I'm no problem, but it is looking alright. It's looking good. I thought there'd be a couple of problems with it, and I was right. But it's actually better than I thought it would be, so not bad going. I actually think you could do with be a little bit slower on the print. Might work. The layers to go. We're starting to come back in now on the top of his head, so the layers will get quicker now. Oh, another overhang bit there that's going to look shit. See how that goes. I'm getting a lot of drop frames at the minute. I do apologise if things have got a bit jerky or a bit blurry. There is some processing going on in the background of the gaming computer which is slowing things down. I'm actually wondering if it's something to do with the fact I've got TeamViewer going. I am also, well, I'm actually doing an upload as well, which might not be helping. A lot going on in the background. Shall we have a look? Yeah, there's the front bit. A bit droopy, as I say. It's never good to have something coming out, even at that small, at right angles, because it just tries to extrude it into air. And the problem is the speed it's going. It's difficult for it to try and actually get that bit right, so maybe reducing the speed for things that I know are going to have some kind of overhang would actually make a difference. But it has done a good job, so I'm pleased with that. Just looking through one of the some of the stuff about the Marvin search I did earlier for the Marvin model without a keyring head, and I found the best title ever for a model: Marvin with improved crotch. Nice. What is this Marvin thing all about, anyway? I think we're about done. And we're done. So that was 6 minutes earlier than build. So shall we take a look? So let's hide 3D Cam and TeamViewer. Move the keyboard out of the way. Apologies for the horrible noise there. there we have it. So I'll leave him on his board. There he is. Oh. So as you can see, a bit of scraggy. So there is a separated thread at the front of his face there. His head bit hasn't gone a bit blobby, it's drooped a little, I think. Side bottom bit is very scraggy, so yeah, not the best at doing something like that, horizontal like that. But yeah, there he is. It's not bad, it's recognisable. Look at it from a distance, it looks okay. You know what it's meant to be. He's got a mouth by the look of it. Let's break him off the print bed. Here's a nice little model, quite warm. And there he is. So you look under there, the improved crotch, potentially. So, just got to try and find out what he's from now. So I'll do a little bit of clean up on him. So let's get rid of that loose thread. These rounds it's difficult to get a decent grip. So I'd say most 3D models that you do will need some degree of cleanup on them. This is a lot less than I thought it would need. And there's quite a lot of string separation underneath the crotch area. I see why it needs an improved crotch, to be honest. But it has come out quite well, quite pleased with that. Garzini will be happy. I've done justice to his Marvin. Okay, let's try and grab that bit of that angle. Like years of taking mould lines off Warhammer 40k figures have made me a bit of a master craftsman with the old craft knife, box cutter. So, clear that bit off. Okay, so there you go. Cleanup is not complete, but progressing. So yeah, it's not a bad little model. That's it. Finish off a bit of this cleanup, get a better knife. I think I've just got to the point where the knife just isn't quite sharp enough to get in some of these little corners. I think maybe increasing the size of this by a little bit would help, and doing some support for those extremes there would help the model a lot. But as a quick test print, it's actually done alright. Didn't sag as much as I thought it would on those edges. So all in all, I'm quite pleased with it. Right. So, there you go. Let's have a quick look at his face just so you can see exactly how much I've cleaned it up. You see I've got rid of his loose threads, a bit of a wipe actually with something wet. Might actually clean up some of that scarf that's still sitting on his face. Little Marvin, whoever he is. Wherever you're from, I salute you, sir. Yay! Yay! Okay, so that's pretty much it for the fundamentals of 3D printing for this evening. I hope I've covered most of the stuff that you'd need to kind of get into if you're going to start doing this hobby. As I say, it's a lot of fun. Oh, too far. Too far. There's a lot to think about when you're setting up a printer to make sure that it's working properly. There's a lot of things to check. There's a lot of things to keep an eye on as you use your printer and as it gets older and as your filament ages. Because as I said, the filament aging is a problem. It's probably the biggest problem. Make sure that if you're not using it for a while, you store your filament away in a sealed box with as much silica powder or silica granules as you can find, just to take away that moisture that's so bad for it. Apart from that, your printer itself isn't too difficult to maintain. Keep it clean, keep it calibrated, keep it in a cool place. The usual stuff with the electronic items. Don't smack it with something, don't take the print heads out of alignment, don't screw the motors up, that so on. And obviously keep an eye on your settings. But there are loads and loads of resources out there on internet in terms of what to do to fix printers that may be broken or having issues and so on. So feel free to check those out as well. So to finish it off, I'll give you a look at my ugly mug for a little while I close down. So good evening everyone. It's your favourite hairy Scotsman. He's looking quite red today. I'm looking shiny because I've got the big shiny lights on today, and I have got a bit of eczema today. Good God, I'm red as a beetroot. It's unusual. So yeah. Boop. Boop. There we go. Do. Save. Unlock. Bring it down a bit again. Bring it back up a little bit again. There we go. So yeah, hope you've had fun. I've enjoyed it. It's always good to get a bit of 3D printing done. I do enjoy my 3D printing. Something I really do get quite a lot out of, and I'm hoping to turn it into something that I can do, maybe to make a little bit of money from, or launch a career from, or not a career as such maybe, but supplement the miniatures and role-playing type stuff that I want to do with my life. One of the things I want to try and look at is, obviously, if I'm going to develop my own RPGs and tabletop games, can I use 3D printing to create miniatures for them, for example? So that's something I am looking to. Don't know if I'll be able to do it with this printer. It doesn't seem to be high enough resolution or good enough quality for it, but it is a starting point to learn how it all works, and then obviously as time goes by, if better printers come down in price or become available to me in some other way, like free magazines, or not free magazines but Bitwork magazines, or buy them in parts, or hire purchase, or sell the wife, or stuff like that, then an upgrade would obviously contribute towards that being a possibility. So but that's one way to take it. In the meantime, printing things like that which can hold your technology to the wall is useful. Stuff like that for doing little gimmicky things like doing cookies for people's birthday, stuff like that. And obviously the holder for your iPad, your iPhone, your Kindle, whatever, that you can mount on the wall, obviously it has its usage, so making life easier all over the place. But cool. So anyway, we shall draw this to a close, and I shall sign off for the evening. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you want me to do any more stuff like that, then let me know. If you see anything on there that you have any questions about, like if you watch on YouTube and you do 3D print and you think there's stuff that you want to ask, then stick a comment on the video, or send me a message on Facebook or Twitter or Twitch even if you must, and I'll see what I can do to answer you. But any blah, yeah, I'll run out of things to say, so I'm just going to go now. Have a good night, have a good week, everybody. Hopefully, probably not going to be online this weekend for the RPG, but I am going to try and get some more of that Submerged played at some point this week. So if not before, I will probably do either an hour or two on Submerged on Sunday if I can. So hopefully see you Sunday, if not before. Otherwise, next week on this stream, is it the one I've called Transport? So transportation and sport type games, which I may think about branching out with because that theme's quite restrictive. So I'm going to see. But let's call it Transport for now, and we'll see where it goes. But for now, everyone, take care, have a good night, have a good week, and I'll see you out there. Fly safe.